listen to one another, be willing to compromise. And I think we can do that. I've seen it done. I can remember 2 years ago when the Senate passed the First Step Act. I started on this mission 10 years ago. After the passage of the effort on the drug crimes bill in the House of Representatives over 20 years ago, it was clear that that bill was fatally flawed. That law resulted in unjust outcomes as well as ineffectiveness when it came to fighting drugs. And I started 10 years ago to try to change it. Change the disparity between crack and powder cocaine sentencing guidelines. I managed to get some part of it done, but then when I took on a bigger issue of the mandatory minimum sentencing, which was involved in this as well, I ran into a blockade by the name of Chuck Grassley. Chuck, a senior senator from the state of Iowa, didn't see eye to eye with my approach at all. And I realized I was going nowhere with my bill without him. He was chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. And so we sat down and spent a year, and we came up with a bill we both agreed on. It wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't my original bill by any means, and it wasn't what Chuck Grassley wanted. But we found a good bill called the First Step Act. And he became the lead sponsor. Grassley, Durbin, bipartisan bill. That bill passed the House, passed the Senate, was signed into law by President of the United States, Donald Trump. Who would have guessed that Donald Trump would sign a bill on criminal justice reform? But he did, and he bragged about it afterwards and continues to this day. I guess the lesson learned there is if the right people can sit down with the right goal in mind, we can achieve an important victory for the American people. I understand now, having been to these rallies on Black Lives Matter, how determined and desperate people are across the United States to see us change when it comes to racism in law enforcement. They're desperate primarily in our younger populations. It's interesting. Even the largest rallies are being led by high school students who are bringing together hundreds, in some cases thousands of people to peacefully demonstrate on behalf of justice in law enforcement. The message is pretty clear. They do not want to grow up and they don't want to raise their families in the shadow of racism. We have fought this issue in America for over 400 years. That's how long it's been since slavery came to our shores. And the racism that followed from it, was part of it, is still very much alive in America and seen in video after video. And these younger people are telling us once and for all, change it, grown-ups. You're supposed to be in charge. You're supposed to have the authority. So what we say on the Democratic side is we cannot waste this historic moment, this singular opportunity. Let's not do something that is a token, half-hearted approach. Excuse me. Let's focus instead on making a change that will make a difference in the future of America. When I take a look at the bill that we put together, the Justice and Policing Act, and again I want to salute Senators Booker and Harris, we establish standards for criminal police misconduct under the law. We talk about qualified immunity reform. Allow me to say a word about this. That was the one thing that Senator Tim Scott said on Sunday was a major sticking point on the Republican side. And we discussed it yesterday at the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing. What does it mean? It means that if a policeman is guilty of misconduct, discriminatory misconduct against a person, they can be liable for civil damages. Obvious case, someone is shot and killed, and there's a belief that the policeman was guilty of misconduct in the process. That policeman could be found guilty in court and liable for civil damages to the family, much the same as wrongful death or personal injury. But the problem is that the courts have taken this qualified immunity and basically said that if you cannot find an identical fact pattern for that policeman's misconduct, you can't pursue the civil recovery of damages for the family that lost the breadwinner, for example. Now, The argument for that position has been made by some Republicans that even if a patrolman or policeman has done something that is terribly wrong, you shouldn't take their home away from them to compensate that victim's family. And so the Republicans have said, we don't want to change the qualified immunity standard. Now let's move from that debate to the real world.